take a step back.
Good day everyone, this is going to be my Summerset update for the Advanced Magicka Sorcerer guide. I'm going to be giving you a playstyle overview like in the previous guide. Then I'm going to give you the new builds for this patch. It's going to be 5 of them. And then after that I'm going to tell you what I changed for the champion points, because there are some things that I've changed when compared to last patch. Now I'll be starting with the playstyle overviews. Basically these are going to be 2 choices you're going to have to make while you're making your build. After that I'm going to give you the builds, and I'm going to specify like changes you make to the builds for each of those choices. The champion points, they're basically the same for every build. Yeah, so enjoy it, and let's get started with the playstyle. The defensive playstyle is going to be the first choice you make while getting your build, and I'm going to visualize this by one of these sliders over here. I'm going to take this one. So take this slider here as a representation of every sorcerer build there is right now for 1vX, and this slider is going to tell you how they defend. So on this left side here you're going to have the more active defenses, shields, roll dodge. You're going to protect your health. Well, you're not going to let your health be touched on this side, and it's going to be all on like things you do in combat, like rolling, etc. That are going to defend you. And then if you go to the other side, you have the passive defense over here. So that's going to work with resistances, also resistances for your health. So it's okay if your health gets touched over there, and you're going to have a lot of healing over time as well. This is going to be generally more tanky. Now you can go anywhere in between these two extremes as well. So for example over here you're going to have some well-fitted trait and some impen traits in order to get both the rolls of the active defense and the impenetrable from the passive defense. But in general I do advise going for one of the 2 extremes, because here you have some things that are going to cancel each other out. For example, if you focus on shields a lot and then you go with impen traits, these impen traits are going to be useless because they don't work on shields. Now about this active defense here, this is what I usually run. It's not necessarily better than the other side, it's just the playstyle that I prefer. They both have bonuses and rollbacks. Now an important thing over here on this side is that you have high maximum stamina and good stamina regeneration, because as I said you're going to be roll dodging a lot, and roll dodge is going to help you with 2 things. The first thing is that you're going to avoid the damage from many players at the same time, something which shields don't do, because the more people that get on you, the easier those shields are going to go down. But when you roll, you're going to roll everything, so it's a good way to avoid damage if you have a Zerg chasing you, for example. And then the second point of roll dodge is the mobility it gives. Snares and roots are often a good counter against the sorcerer, but if you can just roll out of them every time, it's going to be like a really great help in just kiting around your enemy and taking him down like that. Now something to notice for the roll dodges is that I run a lot of well-fitted gear, preferably 7. Yeah, that's going to be a 35% roll dodge reduction, which is going to mean a lot for your stamina sustain. Now the second point of this high stamina is that I have Dark Conversion over here. This is going to be my main source of Magicka regeneration. Yeah, you gotta watch out when you cast this though. Like for the active defense you're going to make sure that you have a shield up every time, and only then you cast the Dark Conversion. You also like preferably cast this when you're CC immune, so after you break free. But I also use this poison over here, the escapist poison, which is going to give me 4.4 seconds of CC immunity, and then I know it's a good time to cast this Dark Conversion as well. Now the benefits of this active playstyle is that you can take on a large amount of people at the same time and then get away safely because of the roll dodge, and it's going to be very mobile. It's going to deal very well with snares and roots as well. The drawbacks of this playstyle is that if you make a mistake it's going to have a large impact. If you forget you cast your seals all the time, your health is going to get touched and you're going to get one shot pretty easily. And another drawback is that it's pretty susceptible to oblivion damage, but only when you're making those mistakes again, because you can't deal with like a single slot or shield breaker user by just casting your healing wards and your dark conversions in an intelligent way, so like when you're seeing your new caster conversions. Now about the other side of this slider here, we have the more passive defense. Yeah, this one also has benefits and drawbacks. In general, you're going to focus more on resistance and healing over time over here. You're going to have damage reduction and you're going to have a lot of defense of your health, so it's okay if your shields drop over here. It's not all you have, the shield stacking. You can like take a bit of risk and let your health be touched in order to get a kill really quick. You often also go with high stamina here, but not anymore for the roll dodge. It's more for blocking and for dark conversion still here, because this is the heal, right? And it's going to be very useful for the health defense. Next to that, you often also use surge over here to the power surge, going to give a big heal over time. Same goes with rapid regeneration over here, often paired with a maelstrom staff. Now for the resistance, you get this by using impenetrable on your gear instead of well fitted, and you can also slot specific sets like Bloodspawn, which is going to give you even more spell and physical resistance. Now the bonuses of this playstyle is that you can make more mistakes. You're not going to get one shot instantly, and it's also very good against oblivion damage because you just heal right through that. It's also very tanky. You can take on like 4 enemies and just tank them around all the time by chaining shields, healing over times, and resto ults, which is also an important part of this playstyle. Actually, using the resto ult a lot going to give you major protection and just a very good heal. Now the downsides of this build are the zergs. Like if there's a zerg on you, they're going to catch you much easier if you have the passive defense, because you can't like roll out of their snares every time, etc. And it's also going to be less mobile, so if we imagine ourselves fighting a Dragon Knight, they're going to root you and snare you all the time, and one of the main counters I think for fighting a Dragon Knight is just moving around them and kiting. But yeah, you're not going to be able to do that with this build. The second choice you'll be making for your build is the offensive playstyle. You have two options here basically. The first is going with the reach playstyle. So here with this skill, you need a master staff for this. So you're going to need to include that in every build as well, because it's a really nice bonus to the reach spammable. It also gives dots this skill, so you can run the double dot poisons instead of this one, and then run Scoria as well. It's just an option. The bonuses of having this playstyle is that you have really quick burst. It's very good when you have many peoples on you. You just kill one really quickly and then you go and you kite again. Another bonus is that you don't have to switch out any other skills, so like you can keep your finisher, you can keep your mines, which are really good skills for 1vX. The drawbacks of this playstyle is that it's counterable. Reach can be rolled, it can be blocked, and reach is also a short CC, so might be tricky there, but in general it's very good for 1vX still. The second way you can go offensive is with Cage, so Rune Cage over here. This Cage is like, the main strength of this Cage I think is to make guaranteed combos, so like if you do a Rune Cage into a fragment, your fragment is always going to hit, or if you do cast a Meteor and after that you cast your Rune Cage, your Meteor is not going to be blocked. It's going to deal a very high amount of damage, and it's also uncounterable. This goes straight to roll, straight to block. It also makes it strong against good players, because if they know how to counter your reach, it's going to be much harder to take them down, but like this is just uncounterable, so you just one-shot them anyway. Now the drawbacks of this playstyle is that it's a bit harder to make bursts with it. You have more skills to cast, and like if there's several enemies running through each other, it might be that you're going to cast the wrong skills on the wrong enemy. And another drawback is that you're going to have to switch to fill this Rune Cage in your bars somehow, so you're going to have to switch something out, for example the finisher, for example the mines, maybe dark conversion, I don't know. so might be a drawback too. Now you're going to have to change your spammable from flame reach to crushing shock or force pulse, whatever you like here, because yeah, you don't need the CC from this anymore, you have a better CC now, so you go with force pulse. A last thing I want to mention for the offensive playstyle is that you can use overload this patch too now. It got quite a bit buffs compared to last patch. Now if I just go into the overload bar here, basically this is just a very high damage burst you do every time you have this overload. It's better than the meteor for that, because you can cast it again and again, but the drawback is that it has counters. It can be rolled, it can be dodged, it can be reflected, but then again we have cage. So if we do a burst combo, for example, we do curse into mage light, into cage, into overload. Now people are not going to be able to dodge or block it, so that's going to be a very high amount of damage. Overload is something you can use on every playstyle as well. Like, you don't have to go with a specific cage playstyle on your normal bar or specific reach. You can just slot this instead of your ultimate whenever you feel like it. It is a bit clunky though sometimes. Like you can get stuck in the bars and you cast this multiple times, but you gotta watch out with that basically. And if you notice the mage light, by the way, they changed in power. Now it does 40% more damage on light attack. That includes overload. Now it's not exactly 40%, it's less than that, but it's still buffed compared to last patch, so this becomes a viable alternative now. And you can also slot in extra skills on this bar, for example lightning form, which is going to help with the passive defense, for example. Yeah, which is also another benefit for the overload bar. So before I begin giving you these builds, I'm going to mention a few things that count for every one of them. So I always run dry food over here on the Magicka Sorcerer. I also always have the spell power potions and these escapist poisons over here. I'm also a vampire stage 2. No, I'm stage 3 vampire to get the undeath passive and the regeneration passive from it. But if you want to know more about these passive, about the utility and also about animation cancelling, I suggest you watch my previous guide. I've marked in the description there what still counts for Summerset and what is outdated. So yeah, I highly recommend you go watch that if you want to know more explanations about this here. So for the builds, I'm going to give you the gear and the skills at the same time. I'm going to give you 5 setups for this patch, and each of the setups has some changes based around the choices you've made in the previous parts of the video. Now the first build is going to be a simple shackle breaker and lich here. It's the same as last patch, but it has 2 changes. The first one is that you can run a monster set over here now, and the second one is that you still have 5 pieces lich on the back bar, but you only have 3 anymore on the front bar. Now this build does have the Master's Inferno staff, so you can only run the reach offensive playstyle here. About the monster set, I like to run Zaan with this build. You can do other monster sets too, like it's up to you, but this setup has a lot of regeneration with 2 sustain sets over here. So, and then I want some damage from my monster set. Now Zaan is a really good monster set. I know it has a high cooldown, but when it does proc, it's almost always going to kill someone. It's a bit like a mini soul salt, but you can cast things while it's active at the same time, so really strong monster set over here. Now for the different playstyles, yeah, I have the active defense, so I go with a lot of well fitted over here. Preferably I'd go 7, but I still have to change this one later on. If you have for the passive defense, it's better to go with impenetrable. And you could consider changing the monster set for Bloodspawn as well, because Bloodspawn can proc while your shields are up, and then when the enemy goes through your shields you have the extra resistance on your health. Plus the ultimate it gives is going to allow you to cast more restaurants. Now for the skills for this build here, for me it's the same as the last patch as well. I have a shield on the front bar and the shields on the back bar, because I have the active defense, so it's important to always have a shield up. If you have the passive defense, go and put this hardened ward on the back bar. You can put mines or maybe streak on the front bar then. Obviously reach here, because that's the only thing you can run with this build. the ultimates, I still have Aetro and Meteor on the front bar. You can switch this out for Resto Ult for the passive defense. About the shield here, I have Dampen Magic. Like you, it's up to you. You can choose between Dampen or Harness Magicka. The difference is really noticeable between shield size and regeneration, but it's something you gotta figure out yourself which one you like the best. The second build I'm going to present to you is 5 Shackle Breaker and 5 Armor Plasm, combined with the Special Destruction Staff and the Special Restoration Staff. Now this build here is going to support every playstyle for defense and offense. For the offense, if you want to go with reach, you have to slot the Master's Inferno Staff over here. And if you want to go with Gauge, you have to get the Asylum's Perfected Inferno Staff. And then you'll have to fit in Gauge in your bars as well. So first you're going to switch out reach for Force Spells. You need that for the Asylum Staff too. And then you have to switch in Rune Cage somewhere, so you're going to have to drop a skill now. Yeah, you have to choose for yourself here. You can drop Frags, you can drop Finisher, or you could drop Mines as well, so then you place Cage instead of Curse here. You move Curse to the back bar, like this. So now you're going to start your burst on the Restoration Staff, and then you're going to switch and continue like this. For the defensive playstyles, if you want to go with a more passive way, you'll have to switch out to Well Fitted for Impenetrable again. You might want to get the Resto Ult, and I would also advise changing this Restoration Staff. So for the active defense I have it like this, so staves count for 2 set bonuses, so you get the 1.5k Magicka. But for the passive defense, it's better to go with a Maelstrom Staff and then put Rapid Regeneration in your bar, because it synergizes really well. It's a heal over time, which is really nice for the playstyle, and it's also a lot of Magicka regeneration. The third build is 5 Shackle Breaker, again 5 Armor Plasm, and also Shackle Breaker weapons. But the difference with the one before is that we're running a monster set right now, so you can choose whatever you want here. I go with Zaan because it's extra damage on top of the 2 sustain sets that I have here. Now this build is only going to allow the Cage playstyle, so you'll have to fit in Cage somewhere. Can be instead of Frags, instead of Endless Fury, just like before. If you want to go with the more passive defense, you switch to Impenetrable over here instead of Well Fitted. And yeah, that's really it for this build, to be honest. It's quite simple. It's just very high stats, and then you can fit in a proc set on top of it. Effective and simple build. For the next build I have 5 Amber Plasm on the armor, 5 of the Way of Fire set on the Destruction Staff, and on the Restoration Staff I have this Restoration Staff of Willpower. Now you can still switch this for a Maelstrom Staff like before, but I use this because I have the active defense. Now this Way of Fire set over here, if you just read the bonus here, it has a chance to deal a little bit more than 5.5k flame damage on a weapon ability, and with a weapon ability that is Force Pulse or Crushing Shock over here. Now the main point of this set here is that your spam bulb is going to have a damage increase. This Force Pulse is going to deal almost as much damage as Crystal Fragments, so that's why I threw out Crystal Fragments in this build and I fit in Rune Cage. Now I like this one here because it allows me to fit in Rune Cage into the bars without really sacrificing anything. Frags is pretty much useless for this build anyway because it deals as much damage as Force Pulse. And then about the sets, one more thing here is that you can run a monster set with this build as well. Now because I'm running the Way of Fire set, I'm missing out on some regeneration and damage bonuses because it's actually a heavy armor set that I retraded to fit into a light armor build. And to make up for that regen loss, I went for the Engine Guardian over here. But yeah, you can also run other sets like Infernal Guardian or Zaan if you want to have more damage. The only thing I'd recommend is that you don't run separate monster pieces, so for example 1 Dummy House and 1 Infernal Guardian, because the 2-piece bonuses for most monster sets are really beneficial. For example, this here is just one of the best sustained sets in the game. Zaan just one-shot people. Infernal Guardian is like crazy pressure on them, so definitely go for a 2-piece monster set over here. About the stats, you might have seen that my maximum Magicka is a bit lower and my regen is a bit higher. So for this build I usually switch to the Mage Menders, so I still get 40k max Magicka I usually go, that's my go-to point for the maximum Magicka, because I do like rely on shields a lot, so I want to have big shields. And 40k, like that's very good. The damage you might have seen is a little bit low, but we are running a proc set, so yeah. The damage will be alright anyway. So for the fifth and final build, I have 5 armor plasm on the armor, 5 spinners on the destruction staff, a restoration staff of willpower to get the 2-piece bonus again, and then a 2-piece monster set. Now the point of this build is to get your damage very high while remaining a well-rounded build with good stamina sustain and good Magicka sustain. Running spinners is going to buff your damage a lot, so that's why I then go with the Engine Guardian monster set to like keep the sustain up very high as well. But you can run whatever you want here, like if you want to get your damage through the roof, you just run a monster set over here like Zan or Infernal Guardian. As before, switch to Impenetrable if you want to have the passive playstyle, but for the offensive playstyle you can't go with Reach, you can only go with Cage here again. Which is okay, I think, because Cage is like already high uncounterable damage, and if you then get the spinner on top of that, you're going to one-shot people all the time. If I would take any of these builds to go into a duel environment with, I'd go with this one, also with the Engine Guardian, because it's a pet and it like people fire on a pet all the time. But in general, these aren't really duel builds that I'm giving. So that'll be it for the fifth and final build. Now for the champion points, obviously things have changed when compared to last patch, because we got more of them now. A general thing to notice is the jump points still, like if you go for 18.9% for example, it's going to scale it down to 18%. It also counts if you go for 99% for the game, then the UI is going to tell you that you go for 19.0%, but in fact you're still going down to the 18% mark. So like 19% becomes 18%, so you have to watch out with going for like a full percentage as well. So for example 19.0%, you want to go just above a certain percentage. So for the green tree I have 56 into Warlord, 14 into Sprinter, then 64 into Arcanist, and 49 into Mooncalf. Now I do have quite a bit into Mooncalf because stamina regeneration is important for my builds. So this is going to like synergize well with it. I don't have anything into Nasty because I just don't have heavy attack. The resources get drained. You don't gain any resources when the enemy blocks or rolls it, so pretty useless there. And when I want extra Magicka, I just use Dark Conversion. I also have 66 into Tumbling. That's because I have the active defense mostly, so that's going to help a lot with my stamina sustain. If you have the more passive defense, you just gotta like put less points into this and more into Shadow Ward, and you can spread them like around Arcanist, Mooncalf, and these two over here. I had 1 point left, so I put it into Siphoner, because when fighting Templars, when you place negative effects on it, they can purge it, right? But they can only purge 5 effects, so if you have the Siphoner on them, which is an additional negative effect, they might be purging that one instead of a dot you've put on them. So the dot stays on and they've purged this. So that's why I have 1 point here. Then for the blue tree I have 48 into Elfborn, 56 into Elemental Expert, and 38 into Spell Erosion. I also have 35 into Staff Expert over here, because they buffed the light attacks for every weapon type this patch. So if you go for some more into Staff Expert as well, the light attacks are going to do a large amount of damage, which can only be beneficial. Then 73 into Master at Arms. Notice that I'm going just above a percentage again, by the way. Nothing here. Then for the red tree I have 61 into Ironclad. Nothing into crit resistance again. You might want to put some points into this if you have the passive defense, but I have the active defense, so I go for O, crit resistance. Now 49 into Hardy Elemental and Elemental Defender, and 44 into Thick-Skinned. Now these three passives over here and Ironclad also count in shields, so when you have a shield up they also get reduced damage, so keep that in mind. It's important to get Unchained over here because yeah, after you break free you're CC immune and the cost of your next stamina ability is reduced, so it's obviously a good time to cast Dark Conversions then. And then to finish I have 44 into Bastion and then the leftover 3 points into Expert Defender because yeah, the enemy light attacks are buffed as well, so it's useful. So that will be it for this video. I know I haven't talked much about potions, about passives and about animation cancelling, but I advise you to go to the previous guide I made because these haven't changed, so everything is still explained over there. I have marked in that video as well which parts are like still here, still exactly the same in Summerset. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this guide and have a good day.